The servant I rescued from the streets pretended to be me. After being dismissed from the royal court, she caught the eye of the fourth prince who lived beside our estate. When the fourth prince was freed from exile, he arrived at our family's manor to ask for my hand in marriage. I accepted in my misery, and the servant threw herself into the lake, ending her life. 10 years passed, and with my father and brother's support, Marcus ascended the throne. Yet the first act he performed as emperor was to falsify treason charges, wiping out my entire household. This is payment for what you owe Elena for forcing me to marry you. You plotted to have Elena murdered. This is the punishment you and your whole family have earned. Punishment, he called it. But what crime had I committed? When I woke once more, I found myself back on the day he came to our manor to propose. I died during the harvest festival, the day meant for families to gather. The blade Marcus drove toward me was stopped by my mother's body as she rushed to shield me. It pierced straight through her heart. Crimson blood poured onto me, streaming endlessly no matter how hard I tried to stop it. My mother died with fierce resolve, clutching me tightly. But when Marcus pulled his blade free, it came down on my swollen belly. 7 months pregnant, my stomach was sliced open, blood spreading across the floor. Still not satisfied, Marcus twisted the handle, churning my flesh and blood. The pain left me gasping like a fish pulled from water. Why? I couldn't understand. We had been married for 10 years, always devoted to each other. The Montgomery family had always been loyal and honorable. My father and brothers had given everything to help him claim power. Why? Why would you destroy us? His face was frozen with loathing. Through clenched teeth he said, "This is what you all deserve. You stole her identity." Then he released a bitter sigh. "Out of jealousy you schemed to kill her. When you married me, didn't you imagine this day would come? Stole whose identity? As the legitimate daughter of the Montgomery family, did I need to pretend to be someone else to marry a fourth prince who held no favor? And Elena? Who was she?" Before I could grasp the truth, Marcus's sword pierced my heart. When I became a wandering soul, I saw our family's heads placed at Elena's grave. Only then did I finally learn the truth. It turned out the person Marcus had wanted to marry all along was my servant. She had pretended to be me and fallen in love with Marcus. By chance I became engaged to him instead. She then took her own life in despair. But what wrong had I or my family committed? Elena, terrified her fantasy would crumble, couldn't bring herself to reveal the truth. Marcus, unwilling to offend my father and brother's influence, didn't dare expose the truth immediately. They were the ones who were weak and pathetic. Why did we have to suffer for it? A profound sense of injustice consumed me, and I wanted nothing more than to destroy the man before me. To my astonishment, when I opened my eyes again, I had been reborn. I bolted upright in bed, suddenly awake. The overwhelming terror seemed to still linger deep in my bones. Sunlight poured through the window, falling on me, warming my entire body. Only then did I understand that I was truly alive again. I gripped my hands tightly, already planning how to kill Marcus. I knew that today was the day Marcus would be pardoned and allowed to return to the palace. The first thing he would do after receiving the royal decree would be to arrive at my house in a grand procession to propose. Everyone said we were the ideal match, the fourth prince and the Montgomery lady, a couple blessed by heaven. I had thought so too. Marcus was handsome and a prince, courteous in his manner. He wasn't favored and didn't carry the burden of succession to the throne. The Montgomery family would never choose the wrong side and suffer misfortune. But who could have known? The greatest misfortune was Marcus himself. The person Marcus had wanted to marry from the very start wasn't me. It was my servant Elena, whom I had saved. After being exiled from the palace, Marcus happened to live next door to our house. When Elena discovered this, she came up with a scheme. She pretended to be me and arranged a chance meeting with Marcus. They fell in love at first sight. Later, their letters kept going back and forth. She even became pregnant. So after Marcus was pardoned and returned to the palace, the first thing he did was come to our house to propose. Who would have imagined that by accident, I ended up accepting the marriage? But this time I won't repeat the same mistake. When the servant Isabella told me Marcus had come to propose, I couldn't wait to go to the front courtyard. I entered the main hall to find Marcus standing before my father, speaking confidently. his expression filled with the smugness of someone who wielded power. I recognized him immediately. The man before me, like me, had come from 10 years in the future. When he saw me, his eyes also burned with intense hatred. My father, unaware of the situation, smiled when he saw me approaching and said, "Victoria, the fourth prince admires you greatly and has come to propose to you today." Before my father could finish his sentence, Marcus coldly interrupted. "Your father is mistaken. I'm not here to propose to Miss Victoria of the Montgomery family. I'm here for your Elena. Victoria is cruel and unworthy of my affection." At those words, my mother angrily threw the cup she was holding. My father's face turned pale with fury. He had originally held a favorable impression of the fourth prince, thinking that although he wasn't favored by the emperor, he was the most kind and virtuous among the princes. That was also why in my previous life, my father had been willing to help him rise to power. But now I doubt my father would think the same. The hall became deathly silent. Marcus didn't seem to notice anything amiss. He was accustomed to being above everyone else, and had long since stopped caring about other people's reactions. When he saw my parents' silence, he frowned in irritation and said to my mother, "It's been so long. Why hasn't Miss Elena been brought here? Is this how the mistress of the Montgomery family manages the household?" My mother's mouth twisted in anger. She had lived so many years and had never been openly criticized like this. She was born into the royal family, a princess from birth, and after marrying my father, she was granted the title of a first-rank noblewoman. She was even close friends with the current empress. Her status in the palace was far greater than this neglected prince. Yet she was being lectured like this in front of everyone. Coldly smiling, my mother replied, "Fourth prince, you're right. I, the mistress, have indeed not been thorough enough in my management today. I was preoccupied with your matters, but whether or not you can marry Elena is something you'll have to ask Victoria. After all, Elena is a servant I rescued from the streets." Yes, Elena was the servant I saved from the streets. After her parents died, her cruel uncle sold her to the brothel. During her escape, she ran into my carriage and out of pity, I paid for her freedom. Later, seeing she was a lonely orphan with nowhere to go, I took her in. She did some simple tasks around the house. I even considered returning her contract once she found a good match. Who knew she would dare to impersonate me? In the end, her foolishness led to the death of my entire family. But in this life, I refuse to play the villain who destroys their love. Instead, I will make sure they are together. After all, a scoundrel and a deceitful woman deserve each other. I lowered my gaze, hiding the hatred in my eyes. In a soft voice I said, "Since His Highness, the fourth prince, likes Elena, then it is her good fortune. As her mistress, I naturally consent to this. Isabella, go and bring Elena to the fourth prince." Isabella immediately obeyed the command and left. Marcus didn't expect me to be so understanding. He looked at me in surprise. I met his gaze, feigning genuine happiness for Elena. I wanted him to know that no matter whether in this life or the previous one, I never cared for him. If only he had been honest with me back then, I would never have placed myself between them. Under Marcus's probing gaze, Elena was brought in. The moment she saw Marcus, her frail body swayed and tears streamed down her face. "Master Marcus, you really came," she said, her voice trembling. Marcus gazed at her with deep affection. It had been 10 years since he last saw her. "Elena, I truly came," he said, his voice thick with emotion. I let out a soft laugh, interrupting the moment. "Such a deep bond between Elena and the fourth prince," I remarked. "But Elena has been with me every day, and yet I never knew when she and the fourth prince became so close." With that, I turned to Elena. Elena immediately lowered her head, feeling guilty under my gaze. Her body trembled as if in fear. Seeing her like that, Marcus immediately became displeased. "Miss Victoria, you have such an air about you. How dare you bully Elena in front of me? Do you not know that she will soon be the fourth prince's consort? Her status will far exceed that of the Montgomery family's daughters. When you meet her in the future, you will have to kneel before her." It was a blatant insult. As soon as the words left his mouth, my mother immediately began to cough loudly. Angered, my father, trembling with fury, shot a glaring look at Marcus, as if he wished to see him gone immediately. I clenched my fists and with a faint look of hurt said, I don't understand why the fourth prince holds such prejudice against me. I simply wanted to say that had I known Elena and the fourth prince were in love, I would have long ago given her the deed of freedom. At that moment I turned to Elena. Elena, when I rescued you from the streets, I allowed you to leave. You yourself said that you had nowhere to go. So I took you into the family's household, and I promised you that if one day you found a good man, you would tell me, and I would give you your freedom. Do you remember those words? Elena hesitated, casting a nervous glance at me. Yes, I remember, she whispered. Marcus was shaken. He hadn't expected me to be so generous. Had he been wrong all these years, holding resentment against the wrong person? I ignored Marcus and instructed Isabella to bring out Elena's deed of servitude and hand it to her personally. Since you and the fourth prince are in love, I naturally have no objections. This is for you. You are free now. Elena was moved, immediately kneeling before me. Marcus, still in a daze, snapped out of it only when he saw Elena kneel. He rushed forward and pulled her up. You belong to me now. How dare you kneel before someone like her? My mother could no longer remain silent. The fourth prince has a lot of nerve, bullying our Victoria and her family repeatedly. Does he really think there's no one in the Montgomery family? Marcus sneered. Miss Victoria knows well what she's done. Why don't you ask her if she ever had any other intentions toward Elena? My father was taken aback. What could Victoria want from Elena? Marcus arrogantly replied. For instance, to kill Elena and take her place. My father's expression turned strange. Take her place? What could Elena have that would make Victoria want to take her place and have her killed? Marcus gave me a disdainful glance. Of course, kill Elena and replace her as my consort. At this, my father truly laughed. I also laughed. Marcus still didn't understand the situation. Was being the fourth prince's consort something to be proud of? The fourth prince should be careful with his words, I continued. The fourth prince is indeed a man of great talent, and I'm sure many young ladies are enamored with him. But as far as I know, the fourth prince has recently been banned from the imperial court. He is the only prince of his age who has yet to receive a title and establish a household. I think at this moment, the fourth prince hasn't yet become so powerful in the capital that I, Victoria, would lose my mind and kill my own servant just to replace her with Elena. In other words, Marcus, the fallen fourth prince, wasn't worth my effort. With that, I dropped all pretense and glared at Marcus with open hatred. Marcus was stunned by my gaze. He opened his mouth. I may not be favored by father now, but you must know that this is only temporary. In the future, I will. Marcus regained his composure and refrained from claiming he was destined to be emperor. He glared at me with hatred. How do you know that I won't be favored by father in the future? Even if I, Marcus, having fulfilled my ambition, am not perfect, I am still the fourth prince. In the future, when you see me and Elena, you will have to show respect. You will be trampled underfoot by me for the rest of your life. My father and mother were once again enraged by Marcus's arrogance. How grand the fourth prince thinks of himself. Why does he expect others to bow to him at every turn? In the midst of this tense moment, Sebastian strode in. Upon seeing me, his dark eyes sparkled. Miss Victoria, since Marcus insists on having everyone bow to him, why not marry me instead? If you marry me, you'll be his second sister-in-law. He will not only stop demanding you kneel before him, but he will also have to kneel before you. Marcus's face immediately darkened upon hearing this. Sebastian, who shared the same mother as the current crown prince, was Marcus's elder brother. But his birth mother was a noble, while Marcus's mother was a palace maid, making Sebastian much more distinguished. Unlike the chronically sick crown prince, Sebastian was in excellent health. At a young age, he had fought in battles against the northern tribes and recaptured 18 cities taken by them before he was 20. He was granted the title of War King and given the richest cities of the south and east. In the previous life, when the crown prince died, Sebastian had no interest in the throne. Otherwise, no matter how much Marcus fought for it, the emperor's seat would never have been his. But such a man, indifferent to power, had, upon hearing of my tragic death, taken up the sword he had laid down for years. He fought his way south and broke into Marcus's golden palace, ending his life with one strike. He avenged our family, but paid the price with his own life, succumbing to old injuries. At the thought of this, my eyes grew hot with tears. I gazed at Sebastian with red eyes. Sebastian, usually calm and composed, now trembled as he spoke. Miss Victoria, have I offended you in some way? If you don't wish to marry me, then don't. But as long as I'm here to protect you, Marcus won't dare make you kneel. My eyes grew even redder. No, I am willing to marry you. Sebastian was overjoyed. But Marcus, standing nearby, had an even darker expression. Sebastian kicked Marcus sharply in the back of his knee. You little brat, don't you hurry up and greet your second sister-in-law. Unprepared, Marcus immediately dropped to his knees before me. His face was as dark as night. His eyes cold as if looking at a corpse. He shot a glance at us. Through gritted teeth, he said to me, Greetings, second sister-in-law. May you all be well. Without another word, he grabbed Elena's hand and walked away without looking back. My marriage to Sebastian was thus settled. That evening, after sending off the delighted Sebastian, my father recalled Marcus's arrogance and was still furious. This brat really isn't worth anything. I truly misjudged him. I thought he was a good one. My mother immediately added fuel to the fire. Yes, last time you even said His Majesty was a bit harsh. That although the fourth prince's birth mother had a low status, he was talented and virtuous. You even said that when he returned to the palace, you wanted to help him request a position in the Ministry of Revenue. I see him like this now, so arrogant. He certainly doesn't seem virtuous at all. Quickly chimed in. Exactly. I see not only is he arrogant, but he holds quite a grudge against our family. He's still a disgraced fourth prince now, and yet he keeps asking me to show him respect. If he gains power in the Ministry of Revenue, who knows how he will oppress our family in the future. My father's beard twitched in anger. Right. He can't go to the Ministry of Revenue, and he definitely can't gain power. My mother immediately nodded. Exactly. We must not let this brat rise to power. Tomorrow, I'll return to my family and tell my brothers not to give this brat any help. The next day, my mother hurriedly returned to the royal residence. Once back, she told my uncles and aunts about Marcus's outrageous behavior. Hearing of his disrespect toward me, my uncles who loved me dearly were furious. These uncles of mine were all generals. Like Sebastian, they controlled most of the military forces in the empire. One in the west, one in the north. As long as they were around, Marcus would never be able to obtain military resources. After venting to my uncles and aunts, my mother sent an invitation to the palace. She took me to see the Empress. Upon meeting the Empress, my mother repeated what she had told my uncles and aunts. By chance, the Crown Prince was also there. Hearing this, the Crown Prince looked thoughtful. It seems my fourth brother has been harboring thoughts he shouldn't have. Otherwise, he wouldn't be acting so recklessly. Looks like I'll need to keep an eye on him. Those in power are always suspicious. The Crown Prince was no exception. This time Marcus was really finished. He had foolishly hoped that, just like in the past life with my father's support, he could clear away the Emperor's prejudice and rise to power. That was never going to happen. When Elena left the mansion, I secretly had someone check her condition. She was already 3 months pregnant, but Marcus still hadn't married her. I knew Marcus was waiting for the prestigious position in the Ministry of Revenue to open up, just like in the previous life. Only then would he marry Elena in a grand ceremony. After all, as a fallen fourth prince, he couldn't afford to hold an extravagant wedding right now. But this time he would never get that position. Although he had been released from house arrest and allowed to return to the palace, the Emperor still didn't like him. The Emperor had once said openly in front of everyone that he was the son of a lowly servant, born of lowly stock. In the past, because my father valued talent, and because of my involvement, my parents were the only ones willing to help him. But now my parents would never lift a finger for him. After waiting for another month, Marcus's situation hadn't improved. He tried to follow the memories of his past life to do something, but he soon realized that no matter what he tried to do, the Crown Prince and his supporters would always create trouble for him. He was stuck at every turn. His situation was worse than before. Even his monthly allowance had been reduced. Life had become incredibly tight for him. Marcus had become the poorest prince in history. But Elena's pregnancy couldn't be hidden much longer. In desperation, he was forced to act. After all, the more Elena's belly grew, the more obvious it became. The fourth prince marrying a servant was unprecedented in our country. But Marcus was so invisible to the emperor that he didn't even ask about it. He simply gave permission for the marriage to proceed without fuss. On June 15th, which was an auspicious day for weddings, Marcus hastily arranged a wedding for Elena next door to our house. While my wedding to him in the past had been grand, this wedding was utterly miserable. I heard that on that day, Marcus pawned his prized jade pendant to pay for 20 tables of food. But because he had offended our family as well as the crown prince and second prince, very few people attended. Marcus was utterly enraged. Marcus's plans continued to go wrong. He quickly figured out the root cause. While I was out, he found me. "Victoria, you're back, aren't you?" Marcus, his face frosty, glared at me with fury, much like when he had killed me in the previous life. But back then, he was wearing his yellow robes and golden boots, towering above 10,000 people. With a single word, he could have wiped out my entire family. Now, even though he glared at me, it was the powerless fury of a man who had lost everything. I looked at him, a scornful smile on my lips. I no longer had the intense hatred in my eyes. "Yeah, I'm back. Marcus, have you decided how you want to die yet?" Marcus sighed, putting on an air of helplessness. "Victoria, I know you're deeply in love with me, but I already have Elena. Why do you insist on getting in the way, forcing me into a corner? You know I don't like obedient, sheltered girls like you. I like Elena. She's been to so many places, seen many things, and she even knows medicine. What can you do? Don't think I don't know. Your talent is only because you benefited from Elena's help." I couldn't help but laugh at Marcus's shamelessness. He had been deceived by Elena's lies, thinking I was a fool, and he still believed I was secretly in love with him. Seeing me smile, Marcus thought he had hit the mark and pressed on. "Although you'd done terrible things in your past life and caused Elena's death, I also killed your entire family. Since we're starting over in this life, can we consider it all even now?" I sneered. "Even in your dreams?" Marcus gave me a disapproving look. "Victoria, there's no point in continuing this. If you can't let go of me, then fine. I'll take you as a concubine, though you won't be Empress. I could make you a noble consort." Slap. I struck him hard, shattering his foolish dreams. "Dream on, Marcus." In disbelief, he touched his face, his eyes bloodshot with fury as he glared at me. "Wretched woman, how dare you strike me? I hit you, the scum who dreams in broad daylight. You killed my entire family. 280 lives. And even the child in my womb you didn't spare. Yet you dare to think of clearing the slate with me and making me your concubine. Marcus, you have a wolf's heart and a dog's nature, devoid of righteousness. In this world I will make you understand that without the support of my family, you will live a life worse than a dog's. Wait and see. One day I will tear your heart out and slit your belly. We won't rest until one of us is dead." Marcus and I parted ways in anger. It was a complete rupture, but I felt no fear. I thought of the tragedy from my past life where my entire family died without even a whole body left. This time I would make him pay 1,000 times over, savoring the satisfaction of personally ending him. Marcus tried every means possible to win the emperor's favor, but nothing worked. He even found that with the queen, the crown prince, and Sebastian blocking him, he couldn't even get an audience with the emperor. However, he did manage to beg the emperor for a position. A plague had broken out in the southwest. He requested to go and help with the disaster relief. Originally, this task wasn't his responsibility, but in front of all the court officials, he made a military pledge. The emperor, realizing that his son still had some use, agreed. He even promised that if the disaster relief succeeded, he would grant Marcus his own estate and title, treating him the same as his brothers. Marcus almost went mad with joy. Before he left, he came to the shop I often visited. He stared at me with hatred in his eyes. "Victoria, do you think that without you and the Montgomery family, Marcus, can't make it again? You are wrong. Without you, Marcus, will still stand above everyone. When I return from the southwest, I will make the world see your false and poisonous face." I looked at his confident face and smiled. "Then I wish you all the best, but don't die in the plague zone." Marcus stormed off in anger. The next day, he set off with his men for the plague zone. Elena went with him. When Sebastian told me this, he looked disapproving. This Marcus must have lost his mind. His wife is already 5 months pregnant, and yet he's taking her to the plague zone. People say he loves his wife to death, but I think he's lying. Victoria, I swear, even if I die, I won't put you in danger. I looked at Sebastian's earnest expression, my eyes welling up with tears. Of course, I believed he would keep his word. In my past life, he fought his way into the imperial palace for my sake. But Marcus didn't dislike Elena. It's just that the person he loved most was himself. He thought all my talents, my poetic ability, and my medical skills were all gifts from Elena. He was so foolish, trusting her every word. He believed the medical recipe for treating the plague in the Southwest was Elena's idea. In my past life, while Marcus didn't lead the disaster relief, I was the one who had discovered the remedy in ancient texts and presented it to the court. At the time, I had already been betrothed to Marcus. Because of this remedy, the emperor looked upon Marcus more favorably. He was given money and a promotion. But to my surprise, instead of being grateful, he resented me, thinking I had stolen credit from his beloved. This time I wouldn't steal the credit. I would just watch coldly as Marcus dug his own grave. Sure enough, within half a month, news came from the Southwest that not only had Marcus failed to control the plague, but he himself had contracted the disease. Just as I thought Marcus would die in the plague zone, a bombshell dropped. Marcus had returned. He was brought back by his newlywed wife, who had dragged him back because she thought the plague zone was too dangerous for someone as valuable as Marcus. The entire court was in an uproar. Never before had an imperial envoy returned without completing his mission. And worse, he had brought the deadly plague back to the capital. Upon hearing this, I was overjoyed and immediately gave Sebastian the formula for the cure, telling him to present it to the emperor. I had originally planned to wait a few days, hoping Marcus would die first before I revealed it. But now I didn't want to wait. He had done something so foolish. I wanted him to live just so he could face the consequences. Marcus was finished. Half a month later, alongside the news of a victory in the Southwest came the news of Marcus's downfall. The emperor had scolded him for his absurdity and incompetence, saying he didn't deserve to be a prince. He was stripped of his title and reduced to commoner status. Marcus lost everything. Even the courtyard next to our house was reclaimed by the emperor. When I saw Marcus outside the palace, he was being dragged out. He had just recovered from the plague. He was gaunt and disheveled, looking like a drowned dog. Elena, who was heavily pregnant, had collapsed beside him, crying uncontrollably. But Marcus, who had always prided himself on loving her, didn't even glance at her this time. I thought to myself, now he finally realized that some things were fake. The person with medical skills had never been Elena. I thought that after that day I would never see Marcus again. But during the Harvest Festival Palace banquet, just as I was about to leave, my carriage suddenly broke down on the road. The coachman went to find help and was gone for a long time. When I sensed something was wrong, I got out to check. As soon as I lifted the curtain, I saw Marcus standing outside the carriage. He was wearing the white robe I used to love seeing him in. It made him look like the cool breeze under the moonlight, like a celestial being. He smiled gently, mimicking my favorite gesture from my past life. "My lady, I've come." I sneered coldly. "What do you want? Come to die?" Marcus seemed completely unaffected by my disdain. He still smiled at me and said gently, "My lady, I finally know the truth. It was Elena, that wretched woman who sabotaged me. She's been deceiving me all along. She never had medical skills nor any talent. She deceived me terribly." I sneered. "That's because you are blind and foolish." Marcus lowered his head. "Yes, I was wrong. That's why, my lady. How about allowing me to apologize to you?" He excitedly pointed toward a shadowy spot nearby. I followed his direction and saw Elena, heavily pregnant, bound up and gagged. When she saw Marcus approach, she struggled violently, but Marcus seemed to ignore her pain. He calmly drew a sword from his waist and smiled at me. "My lady, I will kill her now to avenge you." With that, he thrust the sword into Elena's pregnant belly. He twisted it back and forth. "I killed your child back then. Now I'll return one to you." How is that? He was truly insane. This scoundrel. This worthless man. He didn't love Elena and he didn't love me. He only loved himself. Elena soon breathed her last. Marcus tossed aside his sword and smiled at me. Now we're even. My lady, you can return to my side. Be with me. I will love you properly this time. Dream on. As those words left my lips, the sound of wind slicing through the air followed. In the next instant, Marcus was knocked to the ground. It was Sebastian who arrived. I knew he would come. If he couldn't wait for me at the palace gate, he would definitely come looking for me. Marcus was thoroughly beaten by Sebastian. Apart from a breath of life, there was hardly a part of him unscathed. Sebastian threw him into the dungeons. Now he was no longer a prince. He would be treated as a commoner. Having killed Elena, he would pay for it with his life. However, Marcus was not at peace in prison. According to the jailer, he kept shouting that he needed to see the crown prince because in less than 3 months, the crown prince would die. Only he could save him. But the crown prince had no intention of seeing this cold-hearted brother. After all, he had killed his own child and spouse. What else was there to say? Marcus, seeing the crown prince's refusal to believe him, continued making predictions about future events in the capital. For example, he foretold that the matriarch of the Chun family would die next month. A concubine from the minister's house would be caught in an affair. The prime minister's wife would bear another child despite her age. At first, everyone thought he was talking nonsense. But as these events started unfolding one by one, people began to believe in his ability to foresee the future. Even the crown prince grew fearful. The crown prince finally met with Marcus, begging him for a solution. Marcus claimed he could help, but only if the crown prince agreed to marry me to him. When Sebastian heard about this, he nearly stormed the prison to kill Marcus. But by then, Marcus had been protected by the crown prince. And indeed, the crown prince's health began to fail. He started coughing up blood. He believed Marcus's predictions and agreed to the condition. When Sebastian received the news, he despaired and held me tightly. My lady, am I really going to lose you this time? In that instant, everything made sense. Why Sebastian had rushed to propose, why he was so worried about my safety. I held Sebastian back and reassured him, telling him everything would be all right because the crown prince would surely die this time, within 3 months no less. In my previous life, the crown prince had died in his wife's bed. Everyone thought it was a sudden stroke, but I knew it was because he was already terminally ill. I had found a prescription that extended his life by more than a month. The crown prince knew this. That's why he was in such a hurry to be with his wife to leave an heir. But unexpectedly, he died in her bed. Marcus's method, I knew, would be to force the crown prince to abstain from pleasure, which would allow him to survive the critical 3-month period. But this time, without me, the crown prince would only die earlier. Sure enough, within a month, the crown prince suddenly died in his study, and Marcus was there watching him die. When the emperor learned of this, he was devastated and filled with hatred for Marcus. He called him a monster. The emperor sentenced him to be torn apart by 5 horses. On the day of execution, as Marcus stood among the crowd of spectators, he saw me. My lady, why is this happening? It wasn't supposed to be like this. Tell them I'm the emperor. I won't die. I am the future emperor. Hearing these blasphemous words, the executioner quickly severed his tongue with a single blow. Then, blow after blow, Marcus met his end. At last, I avenged my family, the 280 members of the Montgomery family who had perished in my past life. On the day of the winter solstice, a day suitable for weddings, I finally married Sebastian. I became the second prince's consort. In less than 2 months, Sebastian was made crown prince. Sebastian said in the past life, he had seen my desire for the position of Empress, and so he refrained from competing. But later he realized that without power, even the one he loved couldn't be protected. This time he wouldn't let that happen. 10 years later, I became Empress once again. But this time the person at my side was Sebastian. On the day he entered the inner palace, Sebastian tightly held my hand. I knew from then on every day would be spent with him, never to part again. If you enjoyed this story of revenge, redemption, and true love conquering all obstacles, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more captivating tales. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Would you have made the same choices as Victoria? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.